21 Savage was nothing more than another mindless mumble rapper. He used to get bullied online for things like ruining hip-hop, the effortless way in which he raps, and even for the way he pronounces words. But through growth, focus, and persevering through adversity, 21 Savage has outlasted the era he came up in, while so many other rappers have disappeared into obscurity. It's your boy Louaista, and today we're going to be investigating how 21 Savage went from being an absolute joke to becoming one of the most respected rappers in the game. 21 Savage was basically born into chaos. Growing up in the Zone 6 area of Atlanta, he was immediately exposed to some of the horrors that it had in store, including his father being a drug addict. Through witnessing his dad scrape together cash for his next hit, he revealed that the life of a gangster was the way to make money and escape the poverty he saw around him.
My whole life, really, you know what I'm saying? My daddy smoked dope, so he was a little goddamn J. So I always used to see like him doing little crackhead shit. That's how I knew what crack was. And then, you know what I'm saying, when it got in that grade where like, man, I want them new shoes that all these spoiled that motherfucker got, that's when I started jumping in the street trying to, you know what I'm saying, hustle, sell some little weed. So it's really been my whole life, really, since I was born, you know what I'm saying? I've been involved with the street. But hands-on, I'd say about 13, 14.
Although he claimed that he had a song or two just like everyone else in the hood, Savage never really saw hip-hop as a way out for him until one day when everything changed. On his 21st birthday, Savage was involved in a shootout with his ops that resulted in him being shot 6 times. While he did escape with his life, his best friend died before his eyes. To deal with the pain, this caused 21 to harden himself and turn more ruthless than ever.
Turned into a savage, man. I got on that bull. I was goddamn trying to kill everybody, man. Everybody. If you a nigga motherfucking look at me wrong, B, he's gonna die, B. You know what I'm saying? Anybody who owes me money, B. They got on that real goddamn paid in full shit.
Where did you get hit?
My hand, my neck, my arm, my finger, and my collarbone.
So you got hit 4 times?
As well as causing him to grow colder, the whole thing was a wake-up call for Savage that made him wonder if music was the answer. Because if it wasn't for the fast-thinking paramedics that arrived on scene, he could have easily died that night.
They put me on the stretcher, cut my clothes off, put me on the stretcher, boom. She said, goddamn, let's pull up and let's take him now. Cause if Sarge get here, he'll fuck around and die. Cause they'll be trying to ask him questions before they let us take him away type shit.
Right.
That shit with me like the whole, like after I really was just thinking about it like, damn, how many of my partners who like, I wasn't there, but they got shot and they fuck around and died because somebody wanted to question them. After that shit just changed. That's when I really started rapping. Like, shit. I'm just gonna try something new.
Gifted studio time by his late friend's uncle, 21 began trying to find his flow, and after 2 years of work, he dropped the Slaughter tape in 2015. All of a sudden, he was a major player in an ATL rap scene that was exploding at the time. Because from the minute trap fans hit play on the mixtape's opening track, Skirt Skirt, it was obvious that his sound was so raw and refreshing. This song is still an absolute banger to this very day. And as one user commented, it was one of the darkest songs he's ever heard, which also perfectly describes the next few songs he would go on to release, such as Slaughter King and Free Guwap with Sunny Digital. After gaining some small momentum, Savage kept grinding, but soon everything would change when he dropped Savage Mode with Metro Boomin. This project was full of what many would consider to be real street anthems, and it was at this point that the mainstream started to take notice of him. And in early interviews, people found out that he was as real as it gets.
They said in the 7th grade, you got suspended from middle school for gun possession.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that in the song called No Heart.
Yeah.
That was real? You had to protect yourself in that grade?
Suddenly getting the call from some of the biggest media outlets and interviews, 21 Savage was on his way to fame and fortune. But he had to experience that success through the same lens of all the trauma he had experienced as well.
Johnny, that's my right hand, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would have been calling him right now, hey, I'm at Breakfast Club, bro, you won't believe it, you know what I'm saying? That's Larry is like, that's my left hand, you know what I'm saying? His mama, me, Johnny, Crucial, Rock, like all of us, we used to, like Larry mama raised us, you know what I'm saying? Like, we used to stay with her, Blase Block. Him, Larry and his mama got murdered like 2011, you know what I'm saying? And then Johnny, that's my partner. He got killed 2013. Most people wouldn't even be able to deal with that type of
All right.
It's life though.
While 21 viewed it simply as the harsh truth of life, for others, merely hearing about his experiences was deeply distressing, let alone living through them. But after hearing his story, users would often comment about how much respect they had for him. Despite the hardship he'd faced, 21 kept growing in stature in the rap game. Basically a year on from dropping his first tape, he was already on the XXL freestyle list, alongside other rising stars like Kodak Black, Lil Yachty, Uzi, and Denzel Curry. Since then, the cipher between these 5 men has taken on legendary status, with each man going off to forge a unique path on their own. However, back then, many considered them to be part of a trend that some hardcore hip-hop fans feared would be the downfall of the genre. It was common to see comments like this one, reading, "Never heard of none of them, but I bet they all sound like the same auto-tune mumbling bullsh, unfairly grouped into a category with people like Lil Xan, Lil Pump, Ugly God, and other artists who were seen as not taking the genre seriously." This is something that 21 always resisted.
I'ma keep doing what I do so they can keep talking shit and saying I'm a mumble rapper, but you can hear every word I got now say.
Although, at the time, there were reasons to assume that he would just be a flash in the pan like the rest of them were. He always seemed gone off lean in his early interviews, and the title of his debut album, Issa, was even derived from a meme, after he was mocked for the way he pronounces words during an interview with DJ Vlad.
What does the cross on your forehead signify?
It's a knife.
Meanwhile, he was getting caught brandishing guns at pool parties in a way that isn't usually great for career longevity. When it dropped, his debut record peaked at number 2 on the charts and handed him a massive hit single with Bank Account.
I buy a new car for the bitch, for real. I tear down the mall with the bitch, for real. You can't even talk to the bitch, nah. She fucking with bosses and shit.
He would continue to keep his foot on the culture's neck for the rest of 2017 as well, churning in the now legendary Without Warning with Offset and Metro, before he guested on what would later be a diamond certified single in Rockstar with Post Malone. But even as everything was going his way, it seemed like 21 was maturing and outpacing the other rappers around him. They were still playing kid games while he was making moves towards securing his future, because ever since he popped out, 21 knew what he was in it for. "My goal in hip hop is to get rich and take care of my homies and my mama. I don't want to be the best rapper in the world. I don't want to be the richest rapper in the world. I want all my partners to have nice houses and cars. And I want my mama to have a nice car and a nice house." By leveling up his mindset and staying focused on his goals, 21 set himself up to avoid the traps that so many other rappers of his age bracket fell into. But what no one knew at the time was that he would need that maturity to handle being thrown one of the most terrifying curveballs of his life. In the beginning of 2018, 21 continued to distance himself from the same rappers that he was often compared to. Where other rappers were buying iced-out grills and ridiculous diamond chains, 21 was instead distancing himself from the clout-chasing imagery, moving more like a grown man.
Stopped wearing jewelry for a couple of reasons. One is because everybody wears jewelry. I outgrew it, got getting a little wiser and growing. So another reason is because the richest people that I've ever met in my life, they've never had on jewelry. Every time I meet somebody who's very, very rich, like wealthy, I never seen them with jewelry on. And ever since I've been saving money and not spending it on jewelry, I've been getting way richer.
At the same time he was looking to invest in things that weren't dangling from his neck, he was also positively contributing to his community, such as starting an annual back-to-school drive and mentoring kids in his neighborhood.
I got kids that I just gave $1,000 a piece to who are in school and for inspiration and financial literacy. So it's like, I'm still in the hood, it's just you gotta change what you do in the hood, because you could be positive still in the hood. You don't, like, being in the hood don't just make you negative. Like, you could be in the hood doing negative stuff, or you could be doing positive stuff.
Although his lyrical content hadn't changed much from the gangster rap bars of his youth, every time he stepped up to a mic to talk about his journey led him to gaining more and more praise that other rappers from his freshman class weren't getting. And it was things like this that helped him receive massive respect from his audience, who saluted 21's perspective and how much he's matured. But it wasn't just the audience noticing. Even a rapper who was very scornful of 21's generation saw that there was something different about him. Just 7 months after J. Cole unveiled 1985, a track which basically ridiculed the cockiness of so-called mumble rappers like Lil Pump, who assumed that they would always be on top He gave 21 Savage a feature after the two hit it off at Jay-Z's Made in America festival. This moment proved that 21 was already seen as operating above the kind of rappers that the Dreamville CEO was once taking aim at, when just a few years earlier, he was also seen as one of them. Their collaboration a lot would be the intro to his sophomore album, I Am Greater Than I Was. Far from just an album title, the album got 21 Savage endless praise and reviews for stepping his game up and really learning his craft. Armed with his first #1 album, Savage was on top of the world, but without warning, his past would come back to derail his life as he knew it. As on February 4th, 2019, 21 Savage got detained by ICE as an illegal immigrant.
According to officials with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Shaya bin Abraham Joseph, who goes by the stage name 21 Savage, was arrested for overstaying his visa. The rapper allegedly entered the U.S. illegally in 2005, but failed to leave under the terms of his non-immigrant visa when it expired the following year. The rapper has long claimed Atlanta as his hometown, but ICE officials say he's actually a British citizen.
Most people didn't even know 21 Savage was from anywhere other than Atlanta, so the news came as a massive shock. And for some people, the only answer was to make the whole thing into a meme. Suddenly taken away from his loved ones, what was very sketchy about the whole ordeal was that he was detained just days after he had publicly criticized ICE during a recent performance on Jimmy Fallon, where he rapped the lines, "Been through some things, but I couldn't imagine, my kid's stuck at the border." Straight away, people thought this was a little too coincidental, and his lawyer even called the whole thing curious and troubling. Held for 9 days and forced to miss his performance at the Grammys, Savage spoke out just 24 hours after he was released and basically suggested that the whole thing had been orchestrated.
I don't even know. I was just driving and I just seen guns and blue lights. And then I was in the back of a car and I was gone. They didn't say nothing. They just said, "We got Savage." It was definitely targeted.
For a lot of people, this might have made them resentful or maybe even a little scared to stay on the path that they were on, but not for Savage. Within days of being freed, he launched the 21 Savage bank account campaign, aimed at advising kids on how to manage money and steer clear of credit card companies. Rather than seeing his issues with ICE as a warning to stay silent, 21 Savage took it as validation that he was right on track. And since then, he's been proving all of those people who'd originally doubted him wrong. With each year, it feels like 21 has managed to solidify the idea that he's wise beyond his years. He's even been praised for it multiple times on podcasts like T.I.'s Expeditiously, because the difference between who he was at the beginning of his career and now is staggering. I always like to see 21 interviews because he's grown into a man that I doubt people early on didn't think he would. Whereas other rappers in his bracket are still getting hit with fresh charges or getting into feuds with fellow artists over pettiness, Savage has reached a point where he's basically became a mediator in beefs, which further showcases just how far he has came from the days where he wanted to kill anyone that looked at him wrong.
21 Savage did something I thought was very dope, and he gave me this explanation. He said, yo, I think it was getting to a point. He's like, when two friends are going at it, if it goes far enough, you got to pick a side. And he basically said it was going to a point where he was going to be forced to, like, yo, are you really rocking with this nigga Ack, or you rocking over here? We did have a real conversation, and it was one of, like, you know, let's stop the petty bullshit to each other, and let's, if we're not gonna be going all the way with it, let's try to mend and build towards something that could be, like, amicable. And don't mean that we're gonna be best friends in the club popping bottles, but we shouldn't be at each other's necks, especially when, you know, not necessarily like our paths have to intertwine. You know what I mean? So again, I thought that was a grown man discussion, and I enjoyed it, and I appreciate 21 Savage for facilitating.
Every now and then, he still gets into a few arguments on something like Clubhouse, but is still a million miles away from the man that most people thought he was when he came out. At the same time, he's continued to progress musically. On 2020's Savage Mode 2 with Metro Boomin, he proved that he didn't lose a single step after all that ICE drama. After that, he went on a crazy feature run, and by that point, he flaunted the fact that he was ahead of everyone else he came up with.
That freshman cover beat me in no verse. Nobody.
So you could beat Lil Uzi?
Hell yeah.
Naturally, classmates like Kodak Black and Designer took issue with what he was saying. But when you look at the numbers, it's pretty hard to argue with him. In 2022, he had the top 5 most entries on the Billboard 200 without putting a single record out. Then in 2023, he had a huge year, courtesy of teaming up with Drake for their collaborative album, Her Laws. And if you had any doubts about how much he's respected in the game, he was actually the one who guided Drake on how to attack that project.
You know, I'm pointing it out. Like when he sent me the song, I'm pointing out what I heard, like, and telling him like, yeah, nigga, talk that shit.
Yo, you gassing it?
You know I'm gassing. I'm behind him. I'm
Nah,
standing
for
on
real.
whatever he's standing on, I'm standing on it too.
It wasn't just him trying to talk himself up either. A lot of people saw him as the man that helped inspire Drake towards making one of his best albums in years. This album is proof that he always brings out the best in people. I think it speaks volumes about how much people respect him and how he's able to bring out the best. From the optics alone, working with Drizzy on a collab project helps people to associate you with the pinnacle of the game. I mean, the last person to do that prior to him was Future, and before that, it was Kanye. I mean, before they started beefing. But when it comes to the numbers, 2023 is the year that proved he's really in the elite. This year, 21 racked up 6 billion streams without releasing a solo project. That puts him at 6th overall in the US, with only Taylor Swift, Drake, Morgan Wallen, Bad Bunny, and The Weeknd performing better than him. Whether you're a skeptic that thinks Drake put him on, or someone who believes that 21 Savage is just a superstar in his own right, there's no denying that he's flourishing right now, in a way that most of the artists who came up in that mumble rap wave just aren't. And more importantly, he's done it without getting involved in drama or doing cheap publicity stunts to keep his name out there. Besides that, what makes what he's accomplishing also impressive is that he's doing it without even trying to compete.